And I always think about it like this. If, you got a huge beard, brother. If you and I had a bench press contest on Friday, right? Would you bench press heavy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and expect to be any good on Friday? So then why the hell do you beat the shit out of your kids in practice? And so this is the kind of thinking that we had. And it's unbelievable how dumb football is sometimes in regards to practice and training. I got really frustrated. Kyle will tell you, even my wife went up to Kyle because she's like, I can't live with this fucking asshole at home. I get so mad, and I'm like, what do you, like, you gotta give me something to work with. Give me at least a big, good rock that I can chisel. Don't give me a big pile of turds. However, I stayed with it, and I don't wanna down these kids because some of these kids I can talk about, and I love them to death. The changes that have gone on just by doing some of the most basic shit has been mind-blowing. So I'm gonna go on and we're gonna talk about the changes. And Kyle, forgive me, because I'm gonna talk about the 2016 to 2017 season. Okay, I think I don't know how to do this. This is the worst part about giving this whole speech. I wrote this whole everything out about 3 months ago, and then I don't know how to do any of this shit anymore. PowerPoint, I don't know how to, so just bear with me. Okay, so the 2016 season, to give you guys just a little background, okay? I started as a football coach, not as a strength and conditioning coach, as a football coach, right at the beginning of the season, about when two-a-days started. I don't know if it was the first day of two-a-days or whatever. And I just called Kyle up. Matt Goodwin, where are you at? I don't know if he's even here. Matt Goodwin came and talked to me, said, hey, they're looking for some help. I called Kyle up, and Kyle did a hell of a job selling it to me. He's like, listen, we just need a warm, competent body out there. We don't have a lot of help. We're a very small school in rural Ohio, so you guys have to understand that. It's not like we're Massillon, high school, okay? So the 2016 season, it was as bad of a football season as you could ever imagine. It was just tough. And it was as tough as it was on me, it was worse on Kyle, and it was worse on the kids. We got demolished. We won 3 games, and Kyle, you can kick my ass after this. One game was literally that we won was against the worst team I've ever seen in my entire life. In all my years of watching football and being part of football, there was no one worse. They had kids in 3-point stances like this that would just stand up and just kind of look around. It's like what you imagine, like 5-year-olds, like you put on a helmet and it's like wiggling around, and they snap the ball and it's, what's going on, Mom? We beat them by a touchdown. So it was I'm not joking, 28-27 or something like that, right? I don't know, or 20, whatever it was. We actually had a kid kick a 50-yard field goal, so that was one of our bright spots during that game, 51-yard field goal. Thank God for the field goal, right? So we had, I think by the 3rd or 4th game, our entire offensive backfield was completely different. At one point, we had 7 starters out. And so you say 7 starters, well, everyone goes both ways at London, Ohio, within reason, okay? So that's 7 on both sides of the ball. Our last game was against Columbus Academy. It was a private school, pretty good football school. And we ended the season, I don't think we crossed the 50 that whole game. And they had a running clock in the second half. If you're up by 30 in the second half, they just have a running clock. They just, they stop it for a change of possession or something. That's it. So if the kid goes out of bounds, they just let the clock run just to, just be nice to the kids so they don't get slaughtered, okay? So about halfway through that season, Kyle was also doing the strength and conditioning. Kyle says, and I said, I'll do all this if you want to. That's fine. Kyle's job is in strength and conditioning. Kyle's job is the head football coach. And is anyone here actually a head football coach? You have the shittiest job in the world. It's tough because you're the coach, you're the father for a lot of these kids, you're a psychiatrist, you're a tutor, right? And you have to deal with everything that's coming down. Now, in addition, you got to call all the plays. You've got to do all that bullshit. And now you got to do the strength and conditioning. It's really not that fair. So you shouldn't be here. I'm just joking, dude. Know your role. That's a big thing I talk about. So anyway, so I started doing it. And at that point, because it was in season, as anyone who has got half a brain, your in-season training is 100% dependent on your off-season training. Does that make sense? You guys understand that makes sense, right? So if you do power cleans and presses throughout the off-season, you should do power with. You can't introduce lunges in the in-season. Expect kids not to be sore. So it was kind of tough for me, but I tried to scale it back as much as I could and just was smart about it. But it wasn't my program at that point. It was still Kyle's. So 2016 season is over. Within 1 week, we had 100% except for some of the basketball players that played, kids who play basketball, turn out, show up for off-season training. And that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen because we literally came off one of the worst seasons I've ever seen and every kid showed up, let's go, we're gonna do this, let's change this shit around. Okay, so just so you guys understand, now the 2017 season, we went 8-3 in the regular season, made the playoffs for the first time with 20 years, won the conference. We passed, literally, I'm not even making this up, I actually had a picture of our quarterback throwing a play in this presentation, but I took it out because seeing him throw a pass was like Sasquatch at the beach, if you can get it. Not just Sasquatch out in the open, we passed maybe 2 or 3 times a game. That was it. For the most part, everyone knew exactly what we were gonna do. We had a bunch of road graders up front. We beat the shit out of teams. And even the teams that beat us, the 3 losses we had, we basically road graded them into the ground and made them give up, even though they won. But during one of our games, I think our second, third, or fourth game, we ran a quarterback sneak the entire third quarter. You guys, can you imagine that? And I'm not talking 2-yard gains. I'm talking 8, 3, 5, 12, 2. And it's one of those things I always laugh. It's like, well, they can run it twice in a row, but they're not going to run it 3 times in a row, right? Well, maybe 3, but not 4. Ah, fuck. But yeah, just. And so our offensive line and obviously our quarterback were just amazing. Obviously our tailback had like 3,000 yards last year, okay? And our defense was stout. Once, I think it took a little bit more time for whatever reason for our defense to get going. But understand, guys, this was a team that had no identity, none. We didn't know how we're gonna be. We had no idea how good we're gonna be. And we were the strongest team out there. And the first thing, when I addressed the team, where's the clicker thing? Boop. Okay, that's Kyle. I call him El Jefe. He's the drug lord around. He's the main man. Okay, so Kyle and I talked all through the off season, all through the in season, and I spend more time with Kyle, and Kyle and I spend more time with the kids than any other coach. He's there every day during the training, and we talk incessantly, just about everything we can. It's not just about football, but so we would have these long conversations, and it was tough coming off that bad season, right? The 2016 season, and then finally we were laughing. I'm like, Kyle, let's just do everything the opposite. Like the George Costanza thing, you guys remember that episode in Seinfeld? Just do everything the opposite of what we did, because it can't get any worse. It cannot get any worse. And he's laughing, and then we're like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it, So we, as an example, we didn't condition one time during the season. You guys know like fourth quarter drills and stuff? 0. Okay, now that has a lot to do with how we train. But we started thinking logically, like why do people do 2-a-days in football? Well, because everyone else does 2-a-days, right? And you don't really think about it. So we're like, well, the only reason the real reason is most of the people didn't train back in the day, and so they used this time to get into shape. Well, our kids were in amazing shape, right? We have a very small turnout for football, so 2-a-days we're just knocking the shit out of guys. So we're like, fuck it, we're not doing 2-a-days. We're gonna lift right through our 2-a-days. We're gonna keep our strength, keep our condition, we're gonna keep the kids fresh as possible. Okay, again, we have basically everyone goes both ways. So that's just an example of some of the stuff that we were doing. And then as we started talking more and more, I told Kyle, or maybe Kyle told this to me, but I'll take credit for it. I said, there's really 2 kinds of coaches out there, and whatever discipline, whether it be strength coaching or football or volleyball or whatever the hell it is. There's coaches that do shit the way that they were taught and what they've done. And the other coach does stuff the way that it should be done or how they wish they would be done. And I think a lot of us, we romanticize the old days, right? Well, we did it like this, we were tougher, this and that. Well, how about when you're a player? Do you guys think, did this really work? Why did you do it? And we really started, every part of our football program, we started thinking, well, what's the reason why we do this? Is it really necessary? Because as JL said, time is a big thing. And time is a really big thing when we had a small school and we don't have a lot of kids. You guys understand that? Okay. So anyway, I give a lot of credit to Kyle because he forces me to think. I force him to think. I'll give you a good example. Every day before practice, I run all the kids through their mobility and movement work, right? Part of that is we do a lot of gymnastic stuff, a little bit of jumping before we practice, stuff like that. Once that's done, I run over to Kyle, and I use that term very loosely. It's more of a stride. Kyle used to wear a weight vest every day during practice. So he wasn't running at all. Anyway, I would go over and say, listen, Kyle, the kids look good. Do what you need to do, but let's get them out when you can. Okay. If the kids, a good coach can look at a group and see that they're not ready. Maybe they're exhausted. I would go over to Kyle and say, listen, man, get them out early. They're exhausted right now. And to Kyle's credit, instead of being stubborn about it, he took that advice. I don't know if he took it all the time, but that's how we work together because one of the things that forced Kyle to do is force him to become a better coach, right? He had to be more efficient. He had every coach had to be more efficient. Instead of being out there for 2.5 hours, we're out there for 1 hour and 15 minutes. This helped us stay fresh. And I always think about it like this. You got a huge beard, brother. If you and I had a bench press contest on Friday, right? Would you bench press heavy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and expect to be any good on Friday? So then why the hell do you beat the shit out of your kids in practice? And so this is the kind of thinking that we had. And it's unbelievable how dumb football is sometimes in regards to practice and training, right? You guys understand? Anyone play football here? Come on. Right? It just beat the shit out of you. And then it comes Friday, like, why is that kid limping? Well, I don't know. Maybe because you took him to the ground 14 times and did Oklahoma drill 3 days a week. Okay, so thank you, Kyle, for your help, brother. And thanks for trusting me. Here's a good, now Kyle's got the strength and conditioning background. And so naturally, it's his team, right? I'm just working for Kyle, okay? I talk about know your role. That's my role as strength and conditioning. If Kyle needs something done, I get it done. But I'll fight, all right? So Kyle, when we first started off season, he's like, listen, why don't we do this? Can we do this? What about this? And I'm like, Kyle, are the kids any good? No. All right, just let me do my thing. What about this? No, don't worry about that. And then, so he fought a little bit. And then one day I walk up to the weight room and I see Kyle sitting on a bench press with his head, in his hands, just totally defeated. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? He's like, I just did our workout. I did what the kids did. I'm like, you all right? And he said, I'll never question anything you say again. All right. Because what we got these kids doing is pretty phenomenal. And I have an example of it. So, if anything, guys, the one takeaway from all this is if you're a strength coach, work with your sport coaches and get them on the same page. The bottom line is they have the final say, but if you got to fight like hell to get them on your side and see things more logically, okay? Because training that worked 25 years ago for football, the principles remain the same, but the application is going to be different. Okay, like I said, the readiness for kids today is incredibly low. You are essentially making up for 12 to 13 years of inactivity. You guys understand that? Does anyone see that? Last year I talked to a bunch of the coaches here. I'm not going to name names. And I asked them, I said, what kind of running volume can you guys do? And I didn't ask them as a group. I asked individually. I asked 5 coaches. 3 were in the NFL, 2 were in major college football. So what kind of running volume can you do? And I talked to Joe Ken. I asked you that same question. And all of them like, oh, dude, it's fucking low, really low. Now, when you were playing, Joe, how much did you run? a lot, right? Like, yeah, and you would just run Thursdays before our game the kids would run, and we run like 1600s, and we were fine. But the kids are different these days, and again, it's not their fault, so don't take it out on them. That's the best, because trust me, I did. It's not good. Okay, so the off-season attitude. This is going to be kind of quick. Here it is. JL said something interesting. You learn from failing, right? Well, the other day I told Kyle, if we went 5-5 in 2016, we probably wouldn't have changed much. The shitty season was a blessing because it forced us to really reevaluate. Without massive failure, there cannot be massive growth. So as bad as that season was, man, it turned everything around. And I'll tell you what, our community, we live in a small town. I don't know, there's 10,000 people or so, right, Kyle, about that? It's spread out. It's a farm country. The difference in the attitude in that city was phenomenal. And I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, high school football is everything, like the Friday Night Lights guys. But that school changed, the community changed, and the amount of support that we had was insane. Now, it kind of pisses me off because when the chips are down is when we need you the most. But that's not, we have to deliver a good product, okay? So the 2017 off-season attitude, these are the things I told the kids. One, I never care how many wins and losses they have. It's not important to me. I don't give a shit. All I care about is their effort on that day, on that exercise, and that set. And I call it, you gotta win the battle before you win the war. As an example, if you're a football player, every play is a battle, right? In a game, every play is a battle. If you do your best and try to win that battle, every play, and everyone does that, the score will take care of itself, okay? Now, in our case, we have a couple good athletes, but I told the kids this too, we're never gonna out-athlete anyone. Every team is probably gonna have better athletes than we do. However, we will never,